Today, we're gonna go into the most important skill you need to have if you wanna make 6 figures and above in network marketing. So what does it mean to enroll? Enroll is just a nice word of saying closing the deal, right? Getting that person to make a decision to get into the business with you. Now, I know a lot of people have a lot of fear, a little bit of resistance, anxiety when they think about the sign-up process, especially if you're brand new, because maybe it's something you're not accustomed to. But I want to let you know it's something you have to embrace. It's something you have to fall in love with, because it is a critical and essential part of creating momentum in your business. If you're not closing business, you're going to be out of business. I want you to understand that. And it's no different than any traditional business. If you own a restaurant and you're not closing people to eat at your restaurant, well, guess what? You're not making money. If you have, let's say, a clothing line and no one's buying your clothes, guess what? You're not making any money. Same thing holds true in your network marketing business. Don't think you could just talk to people and show people the information. They're going to say, hey, here's my credit card. Sign me up. Get me involved. Get me enrolled. Some will do that, but that will not be the case for the majority of people you talk to. So in truth, people actually want to be closed. They want to be enrolled. It's just part of the buying process. So if you don't have the confidence to have that type of conversation with your prospects, you're going to end up minimizing the type of opportunity you're creating for yourself, as well as for everybody else. So the fear you have around closing, we need to eliminate that immediately and understand that it's normal. It is a normal part of any business. So what we need to get in the mindset of, instead of focusing on the actual closing process, we need to get hyped up mentally. We need to put ourselves in a mindset where we're pumped up and fired up about what? The possibility for the prospect. What's in it for them? Like if you sat there in front of John and had a conversation with John, you piqued his interest, you set an appointment, you showed him the business, you got to know more about his pain points and what he's looking to do in his life. You know, imagine John opened up and said, hey, I got $30,000 in debt from student loans. I have credit card debt. My job is terrible. And that's a situation. So I want you to look at it like, hey, you're not here to sell John. You're not here to close John. You're here to help John. You're here to serve John. You're here to empower John and equip John with an opportunity that can change his life. Because here's what I know. If I'm working with somebody who's serious and they commit themselves to the business, they commit themselves to the leadership and the system, I know for a fact we're going to change his life financially. There's no question about it. So what you have to think about is, who are you showing up as? Are you showing up as somebody who's here to change someone's life? Are you here showing up as somebody who's going to help someone and take that person from where they are to where they want to be? Or are you showing up as someone who's just worried about, how they look and how they come across? Are you worried about whether or not they're going to sign up? Are you worried about looking dumb? Are you worried about saying the wrong thing? Are you worried about whether or not they're going to have the money to get involved? So we got to get out of our own head about ourselves and put the focus and the attention on what matters, which is what? What's in it for your prospect? So you got to go into the closing conversation thinking about prospect first. Your prospect's goals, needs, wants first, and you being that person who's going to help them get exactly what they want. Now, the second thing when it comes to enrolling prospects, you have to be prepared to deal with excuses, because people are full of them, right? And so, when you begin looking at your prospect and getting into the conversation, and I'll give you the language you want to use, you also have to be prepared to deal with their excuses. And so what are excuses? In fact, we have a definition we're going to pull up here right now. An excuse is a reason that you give in order to explain why something has been done or has not been done in order to avoid doing something. So we have to understand that most people are master excuse makers, right? And my mentor used to say, an excuse is nothing but a well-planned lie. So we have to be prepared that we're going to be getting excuses from our prospects. Now, what do you do when you get these excuses? Well, you just need to know how to handle them. You need to know how to talk through them. So the concept of an excuse, right? I want you to flip it from a negative to a positive, okay? Because it's normal, right? I want you to just have the mentality that everyone you show the business who's going to have an excuse, whether it's time, money, they're going to have an excuse, and you just have to be mentally okay with that. And it's not a negative, because what an excuse is actually going to allow you to do, if you learn what I'm going to cover today, is to really have a conversation that opens your prospect's mind and awareness to the power of the business. And you'll get your prospect from that space of, I can't do it because of fill in the blank, to I have to do it because fill in the blank. So I want you to think about this concept of a boat with an anchor. And we'll put up a little image here right now, okay? So as you can see, you have an anchor here, here's a boat, and understand that that boat is gonna stand in place or sit in place because it's anchored, right? It can't move if the anchor is set. Now that anchor represents excuses. The excuses could be, I don't have time, I don't have money, whatever the excuse is, right? I'm sure you've already heard a ton of them from your prospects. Now, understand that a boat has a destination. That destination for your prospect is going to be his goals or his reason why. Maybe he wants to retire, wants to pay off his debt, wants a brand new car. So that represents the shore, right, of the destination of which he wants to go to. Now, the reality is this boat will never make it to the shore as long as it's anchored. Does that make sense? So what we have to do is we have to eliminate that anchor, which means remove those excuses so we can get rid of the anchor so the boat can do what? Now move towards the shore, which is their goals, dreams, and aspirations. So our job is to help them keep the focus and attention on what? The shore, the destination, the goals, the dreams, the wants, and the why. And that needs to be the main focus of our conversation, right? So in reality, the prospect's going to choose one of two things. They're going to choose either to live into their excuses as to why they can't do the business and can't get involved, or they're going to choose to live into the future of what their vision is for their life. Now, what role do you play in this? The role you play in this is, as they begin sharing with you their excuses, all you're going to do is remind them why they want to do the business. Not just why they want to do it, but why they need to do it, okay? So let's get a little bit more into the excuse game. So what are the common excuses and objections that most people are going to give you in the process of a presentation, right? And we're going to go deeper into this in our next series that we're going to be doing. But for the sake of our short video today, I'm just going to give you the basic ones, right? The first excuse you're going to get is what? Money, okay? Then you're going to get time. Then you're going to probably get spouse. Right? You're going to get, let me do my research. I'm sure you've all heard that one before, right? And then the other one is, let me think about it, right? Let me think about the business or whatever it is, right? So those are the excuses. And I want you to think in terms of peeling an onion. So your prospect probably is going to have 1, 3, or 4 or 5 excuses. The first excuse they give you is not the real excuse. So you have to be prepared for that. When they throw that first excuse, oh, you know what? Let me think about it. The worst thing you can do, and this is what most amateurs do, is they take that excuse and say, oh, okay, no problem, Mr. Prospect. I guess we'll get back to you later on. I'll follow up with you. Here's a book. Here's a magazine. You know, cool. Thanks for coming. No, what you got to realize is that excuse is fake. You got to strip it down. You got to actually peel the onion, right? Peel that excuse away. So handle it. Once you handle the first excuse, guess what's waiting for you? Another excuse. And then you peel that one away. And then what's waiting for you next? Another excuse. And then you peel that one away. But what is the purpose of going through every excuse and peeling back the onion? The whole purpose of doing that is you're going to drill down to what we call the real excuse. Because if we know the first, second, or third excuse is just a distraction, right? It's just a distraction. What we need to realize is that we have to get past that to get to the core excuse. What is really holding your prospect back? And if we can handle whatever it is that your prospect is thinking or feeling about why they can't do the business, if we can handle that and have a conversation and walk them and talk them through it, understand that person is going to say yes. There'll be nothing in the way of them making a decision. So all we're really doing, guys, is removing the barrier, removing the excuses. But you can't remove the excuses if you don't know what the real excuses are. So that's why it's important you get very good at asking questions, listening, and understanding that as they give you an excuse, you hear it, and what you want to do, handle it, peel it, right, and get to the next one, and then the next one. And you want to do it in a way where you're not coming across as pushy or salesy, or even like an interrogator, right? So what do you mean you don't have the money? What do you mean by that? There's a way to do it where you're coming across conversationally, right? Where you're coming across more as a friend, consultant, rather than a high pressure network marketer who's desperate to get him into the business. So let me share with you how you actually can do this without coming across as closing, salesy, pushy, and all that other type of stuff that come with the territory. So when I first got taught how to close, it was interesting because I was in a place in my business where I was so frustrated because I was probably in the game for 4 or 5 or 6 months and doing everything my mentors were telling me to do, invite people, talk to people, and I got really good at getting people to see the business. But for whatever reason, I couldn't get them to convert. I couldn't get them to sign up. I just thought, oh, maybe it's the price tag to get in. It's too expensive for people to sign up. But then I learned what I'm going to share with you next, which is how to have a closing conversation. Once I learned how to close people, my business changed forever. I literally went from like no business, making no money, to making $5,000 and $6,000 and $10,000 and $15,000 and $20,000 a month. And then eventually, as I started teaching a bunch of people the same steps, guess what? My income eventually hit over $100,000 per month. And so I'm going to give you a very basic, simple process. This is not the exact process I use today, but it's something I teach a lot of new people who are just getting into the game of closing. So it's called the closing sequence, okay? You might want to write that down. So the closing sequence contains a series of questions, okay, that will help you get that prospect from information to application, right? So let's get into the closing sequence. 4 simple questions that you can start using right away, even if you're brand new to the business, okay? So the first question you want to ask your prospect is, did it make sense? And obviously it's a simple question, but it's designed to get your prospect into yes mode, right? Remember, closing is not something you do at the end of a presentation. It's something you're doing the entire experience from start to end, right? From the minute you call them and book the appointment, while they're sitting in front of you during a presentation, you're asking all the say yes questions, you're getting them in yes mode. So the first question in the closing sequence is a very simple little question, a little hoop they have to jump through. Did it make sense? Oh yeah, it made sense. We know the majority of people will automatically say yes. Second question, what did you like most? Now, the reason why you ask that question as opposed to what did you think, because if you ask a prospect what they think, they're going to tell you what they think, right? And actually, it may sound a little rude, but we actually don't really care what they think. Let me explain why. Because most people seeing the business aren't really going to understand the business entirely, number one. Number two, most of the people who are looking at the business, it's because of how they think, why they are where they're at financially. So we understand, if you understand that, then that would basically mean that thinking is what's got them where they're at. So we don't really care what they think, right? That might sound a little asshole of me to say that, but whatever. So, second question is, what did you like? Because we want their attention and focus on positive, not negative, right? At the same time, if you ask that question, what did you think? They might say, oh, I think it's not going to work. I think it's too expensive. I think it's too hard. And then again, they get into the negative side of the conversation. So we don't want to do that. We want to focus them in on what? Positive. So what did you like? Oh, I like the money, or I like the products and services. I like the environment of the team. I like the company, whatever it is. You want to find out what they liked, because whatever they say, that's what you're going to use to inspire and motivate them to get involved. It's basically their hot button, right? Plus, it helps you uncover what their personality is. If someone says, oh, I like the money, you already know they're a shark. Remember, we covered that in setting appointments and all that other in the other episode, right? If they say, oh, I like the background history of the company, well, you know it's an urchin who's focused on details and facts and figures. So it's important. This question is so significant because it will definitely show you really about that prospect and how they're perceiving the information. Number 3, do you see an opportunity for yourself? Very simple, straightforward question. Do you see an opportunity for yourself? Now, if you want to get fancy with it, you want to be like a ninja, do you see an opportunity for you to fill in the blank? So you make it specific. You ask them, hey, if you know they're trying to pay off debt in school, do you see an opportunity to pay off those student loans? Do you see an opportunity to buy your spouse that engagement ring? Do you see an opportunity for yourself to be able to buy that dream car? You see? So you're now speaking to their needs. So do you see an opportunity? Now at that point, they're going to say, yeah, sure I do, or no, I don't see an opportunity. Now, if they give you a positive response, what are you going to do? Yeah, I see an opportunity. Great. Immediately, you want to just assume the close. Great, let's get the paperwork out the way and begin the process of enrolling them. I know it might seem a little fast, but I want to share with you something. If someone says, yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, what I love about the business is the fact that I can make money. Yeah, I see an opportunity for myself. Hello, it's time to get the paperwork out the way. Just like if you walk up to, let's say, a Whole Foods, right? You stack your cart up with a bunch of stuff, kombucha, organic this and that, and you're at the checkout line, and then the lady at the checkout line, she brings all your food and product across the belt. She's not going to say, hey, are you sure you want this drink? Are you sure you want this organic chicken? Are you sure that you want to buy this stuff? No, what does she do? Just swipe it, swipe it, swipe it, swipe it. She doesn't say, hey, are you sure that you can afford this? Do you have the money to pay for this? Are you ready to do this? No. What do? Great, that'll be $250, please. Visa or MasterCard. They assume to close. Same thing you need to do with your business. And I know that a lot of us here, between this point, number 3 and number 4, you're going to start having an internal dialogue that's going to kick in like, oh my God, what are they going to say? What if they say they don't have the money? What if they start, giving me a bunch of objections? What you need to do, after you say, let's get the paperwork out the way, you just need to shut up, okay? You just need to shut your mouth, right? Say nothing and just stand there. And let the prospect then decide, okay, cool, I'm ready to go. So what happens is, let's get the paperwork out the way. Don't say anything. Just begin to start signing them up. How do you do that? Take the paperwork out and begin filling it out. That's what I would do, right? That's what I always did. So great, let's get the paperwork out the way and begin to go for the paperwork. So what's your last name? What's your first name, right? What's your phone number? What's your date of birth? And begin the enrollment process. When you get to the part where it's time to pay, don't say, do you have the $100, $500, $1,000 to sign up? Don't do that. Just assume they have it. Great. Visa or MasterCard. Let's get you started right now. Now, here's the bottom line in doing that. By doing that, what you're actually doing is you're pushing up. See, people think I'm being pushy. I'm pushing. Yeah. No, what you're doing is you're pushing up the excuses. Because when you put the prospect in a position where they have to make a decision, right, where it's time to pay, now what you're actually doing is you're pushing up the real objections, real excuses. And that's your goal. The whole concept of a closing sequence is really to get your prospect to that point where it's pen to paper time. No more wasting time. We've already gone through first base, second base, third base. It's time to hit that home plate, if that makes sense, right? So what we want to do is we want to get to that point where we can now get to a yes or no decision. The worst thing that can happen, here's how you know you didn't do a good enough job in the beginning stages, is when you get to the end and that prospect's like, well, I don't know what I want to do. What do you mean you don't know? We've already went through this whole thing. We've already spent time talking. We've already sat down multiple times. You've already seen all the videos. You've already gone through this whole process. If you're still saying, I don't know, that means that you left something out. That means you did not do a good enough job uncovering the real excuse that prospect has. Now, I also want to let you know, not everybody you use this on is going to say yes. Some are going to say no. They're going to have objections. So let me explain to you what to do with those individuals before we wrap it up. I believe that when someone has an excuse or an objection, that is not no, okay? An objection or an excuse is a cry for help. It's a cry for, I need to understand things better. I need more information. I need more clarification. So I use objections and excuses as a signal for me to listen more and uncover what's really in their way and figure out if I can explain it a lot more clearly so they can understand what's really in it for them. Because if they really want to change their life, if they really want to pay off their debt and do whatever, why wouldn't they do this? It just makes no sense to me, right? So if they're giving me a bunch of excuses and objections, I'm going to handle it. And here's how I'm going to handle it. Okay, cool. You don't have the money to get started. Here's what I would say with that. Say, okay, no problem. I know how you feel. I felt the same way too when I saw the business. I didn't have the money. So what am I doing? I'm relating with them, bringing their guard down, removing the resistance. I didn't have the money. But then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to handle it through the process of experience sharing and storytelling. But here's what I found. If I didn't do the business, I would stay in the same situation financially. So I'll tell them, yeah, I didn't have the money. I was broke. So what I realized is that if I didn't change my situation or change what I was doing, my situation was never going to go change. So I had to ask myself, was changing my life and becoming financially free, was that something I wanted? Absolutely. Was it going to be worth risking a few $100 a month to start a business in order to have a possibility of financial freedom? Absolutely. So here's what I ended up doing. I ended up borrowing the money. I borrowed the money. I got started. My first month, I made $1,200. So what happened? I ended up getting into business basically for free, and since then flipped it into millions of dollars. So it was a great decision. Even though I didn't have the money, I figured it out. Does that make sense, Mr. Prospect? Yeah, that makes sense. So let me ask you a question, Mr. Prospect. Do you see an opportunity for yourself? I do see an opportunity for myself. Okay, great. Let's get the paperwork out the way. Bring it right back to the close. They might say, I don't have time. I'm so busy. What am I going to say with that? Hey, I know how you feel. When I first saw the business, I didn't have time either. I was a full-time student pursuing a law degree. I had no time, negative time. But here's what I realized, that college was going to be super expensive. And there would be no way I could actually work while going to law school. So I would be in a situation where I'd be getting into massive, massive debt. So I had no time and I had no way of making money. So when I saw this business, my biggest concern was time. How in the world am I going to build a business and still go to school full time, especially the law program? And that's when they explained to me, hey, it's not about your time. It's about the time and efforts of other people. It's about the time of building a system. If you build the system will work for you 24/7 around the clock, so you don't have to, freeing up your time and you're still making money. We call it working smart versus working hard. So you know what? I didn't have the time, but I found 4 or 5 hours per week. I put it into the business, and little by little, I started making some money. And then over time, what ended up happening, I ended up getting all my time back because I was able to build a team and build a system and earn residual income. So Mr. Prospect, let me ask you a question. If time is your concern right now, if there was a way that you knew that you could generate an extra 1, 2, or 3,000 per month on the side, 5, 10 hours per week, could you find 10 hours per week? Yeah, I absolutely could. Fantastic. Do you see an opportunity for yourself here to pay off that debt? I do. Great. Let's get the paperwork out the way. See how I did that? So you answer their objection or concern or question, not by just answering, but by relating with them. Tell a story. And it doesn't have to be your story. It could be a story of someone else in the business. It doesn't have to be your story. So you share the story, I feel, felt, found, tie it back into what's in it for them, and bring them through the sequence and reclose, right? But then you get that prospect who's just like not interested, they just don't want to do it, right? And that's okay too. So the way I handle those individuals, I say, hey, so you just don't want to do the business, right? It's not about the money, it's not about the time. No, I just don't want to do it. And I clarify, I want to make sure that it's just because they don't want to do it, not for any excuse. I don't believe in letting someone off the hook because they have an excuse like money or time or spouse or whatever. I believe that that person needs to do the business. But if they tell me I just have no interest in doing this at all, okay. Fine, done. I'm going to stop closing at that point because they just don't want to do it, right? Even if I say, hey, even if you could change your life, I don't want to change my life. Even if you could become financially free, I don't want to be financially free. Okay, fine, no problem. So now what do you do with those people? You make a friend. You make a friend with them. Here's what you want to do. You want to leave them happy, right? A lot of times what we do when someone rejects us, we take it personal. You need to realize they're not rejecting you. You're just rejecting the business, right? So if they don't want to do it, all good. Make a friend. Transition immediately. How do you transition? You begin to ask them who they know. Ask them for referrals. Hey, say, listen, hey, I know the business isn't for you. That's fine. You know what? It wasn't for one of my best friends either. One of my best friends, I showed him the business. He wanted nothing to do with it. It's all good. And guess what? We're still best friends. So if it's not for you, no problem. I respect the fact that you can make a decision independently and figure things out for yourself. And, I really appreciate you taking the time to see the information. But hey, I want to continue to build our relationship. You're really, really cool. I got to know you better, and I hope you got to know me. And I want to be able to continue this relationship. So let's stay connected. How does that sound? Oh, that sounds cool. Okay, fantastic. Add them on social media, right? Plant the seed and say, hey, even though it's not for you, maybe you have a friend or two that you know that might be looking for an opportunity. Refer them to me. It would mean the world to me. And hey, you refer me business. It's a benefit for both of us, and I'll figure out how I can reciprocate, whether it be by, give you some money or whatever it is that you want to do to reciprocate with the referrals. I believe in absolutely taking care of the people who help you. So even if they say no, it's okay. Keep the door open. But then what I say add them on social media. Here's why. Because if you add them on social media, now you're going to be able to continue to connect with them and continue to share with them. And who knows, maybe the timing today is not right, but maybe in a week or a month or even a year from now. Heck, one of my leaders in my business, I showed the business to when I first got started in 2004. They said, no, not for me. Then a couple years later, same thing, no, not for me. Then he got invited to a meeting by somebody else. This was probably in 2011 or 12. And then he went to the meeting, and it was one of my leaders that was presenting. I wasn't even around at the time. And the leader that was presenting in my organization whooped out a magazine and basically talked about this guy named Max Knowles and how he'd become one of the youngest millionaires in this company before the age of 26. Now, my friend that I'd known since I was 5 years old was at that meeting. And then he saw me, right, in the magazine. They were talking about me. He didn't realize that they were talking about me until they showed the magazine. And he freaked out. He's like, oh my goodness, this is my friend that actually told me about the business in 2004. So cut a long story short, my friend Derek ended up calling me, like right after. He said, hey man, I just saw the business. I got invited in. I know you were trying to tell me about this thing for like forever. I think I'm ready to get started. So it was 2004, fast forward 2011. That was like 7 years later. He made a decision to get involved. Why? Because the timing in his life had changed. So he ended up getting involved, and within 6 months, boom, hit top position in the company. So the whole moral of the story is you want to close, but not just close with the mindset of signing them up in the business or getting as a customer, but also close in the fact that they can become a referral, and that you keep the door open for that person so you can continue to build a relationship. So when the time is right, guess what? they'll be able to reach out to you and then from there, join you in your business. So I hope you got some value in today's episode on how to enroll prospects. Understand that it's a muscle you're gonna have to build. You're gonna have to do it repeatedly before you get comfortable with it. And I'm gonna encourage you, watch this video multiple times.